Hello, welcome back to All for United WFC. 2 wins out of 2, and no, Erling, I was not doing my hair. Do you know what was happening just then? Barry was taking the mick out of a way I pronounce a word, which you may or may not hear throughout the show. That's what was going on just as before we were going live. As always, as you can see, there's 4 of us this time. It's been a while since we've had a 4-person panel. It's been months since we've had 4 people on the same show. It must have been the end of last season. So it's been a while. So, Jamie, thank you for hopping on and joining our esteemed Monday crew on here.
Thanks for having me back. I can't remember the last time that I was on with you guys, but it's always fun.
It's been a while since you've been on, just in general, actually. Yeah, I'll have to have a look at that. See when you were last on. It feels like it's been nearly a year. It must be since you were on. It feels a long time. So we're going to talk obviously about the Everton game. That's why most of you are here. And the game yesterday. We're going to start though with the Chelsea, the news that that the Chelsea game has been rescheduled for another day. So that's where we're going to start, obviously, with the news that came out yesterday, not long after the game, actually. I think it was about 15, 20 minutes after full time that news came out. So, Jamie, I will come to you first on this one because I tweeted that I feel like this has been a bit of a mess, in the way that it's been handled. UEFA put the Champions League dates out ages ago. So these dates have been known in the women's football calendar for a long time. Chelsea had already qualified. They knew Chelsea were going to be in the Champions League regardless. They didn't need to go through the qualifying route. What do you make of all this and the way that it's kind of handled? Do you think this is the right thing that's happened? Where do you kind of stand on everything that's happened around this game being rescheduled?
I think it was avoidable. Like you said, the fixtures are out. I think the problem there was that because of the side of the draw that Chelsea ended up in, how they have like pairings for Tuesday, Wednesday, and they ended up on the Tuesday side. So they were always, and the draw was only made quite recently. So they couldn't have sort of predicted that, but maybe it's kind of obvious that if that does happen and you've got a Tuesday fixture and you look at the sort of the surrounding fixtures domestically, you could be like, well, actually, on this occasion, we could move this game by a day, because if it was on Wednesday, I don't think the issue exists. And then from the league's perspective, it's not a good look because it feels a little bit amateurish to be calling a game off so soon because of something like this. And when it's supposed to be this big brand new chapter of like professionalism under the new company, it's not good optics. But in their eyes, it's like postponing it is less inconvenient and less difficult than moving it by a day in such a short space of time. So, and if you were to move it by a day, then United end up with a similar, not as severe a problem, but a similar problem the other way because of the midweek fixtures this side. But I said to you privately yesterday, it's creating a problem by solving a problem. So it's not fix the problem, it's just moved it a little bit because then it has to be rescheduled. And because you've got all these midweekers now between now and the end of January, between the Conti Cup and the Champions League, maybe it gets rescheduled for like February, March if they can squeeze it in sometime. And then, I don't know, like it changes the whole dynamic of who's got an advantage and squad depth and all that kind of thing. So I think it was avoidable if they'd have pushed it one day. If UEFA could have been more flexible in that. I mean, I don't know how the intricacies of the sort of TV pairings work, if it's the same as the men's competition or not. But yeah, if they could have moved it by one day to Wednesday next week, I don't think they would have had to have postponed it at all.
No, absolutely. There's definitely, I think there's a thing with you just mentioned UEFA's side of it there. Obviously, there's definitely a rule. I can't remember exactly what it is that Chelsea and Arsenal, I think, can't be shown on the same day, which is why the Chelsea Champions League game couldn't be moved to the Wednesday, and obviously vice versa with Arsenal because of that reason, because Arsenal on the Wednesday, there's something to do with the TV rights as to why Chelsea wouldn't move. They were looking at all kinds of things with our Conti Cup game and whether that could be moved and Chelsea be moved to the Saturday. I mean, Charlie, what have you kind of made of all this? Like Jamie said there, I think it's unlikely to be scheduled this side of Christmas. So we're probably looking at January, February, March when this game is eventually going to happen, which is crazy considering we're in September and we're looking 4 or 5 months in the future now for this game. What have you made of all this? And do you think it's a good or bad thing? Because there's been mixed reactions to this from a United fan point of view, whether this is helpful for United or detrimental.
Yeah, just the thing you were saying about the pairing the teams, that's true. So it's the same in the men's Champions League, isn't it? So if United God forbid, ever make the Champions League again. They might be drawn on a Tuesday, so Man City have to play on the Wednesday. That's basically how it works, isn't it? It looks negligible, like it looks not negligible, negligent. That's how it looks. Because you think about big institutions and big corporations, there'd be a little bit of forward planning and a little bit of co-planning of what was going to happen. But I do think from a player welfare point of view, it's the right thing. It's by the by whether Chelsea have 2 or 3 world-class players per position. That's not the point. You look at player welfare, and to have to travel and play those games across 2 days isn't right for the playing squad. It just doesn't look good from a fan perspective, does it? It looks inconsiderate, and it looks like no one thought about that before the decision-making process happened originally with regards to when teams were going to play when. So I think, yes, I think it's as annoying as it is as a fan, because I was planning to go and watch that game, and I now might not be able to. As a fan, it's irritating, but from a player welfare point of view, it's probably the right thing. But then the interesting thing will be is if both these two sides, obviously Chelsea will get parachuted into the knockout stages of the Conti Cup as per, but if both teams get through to that, both teams go far in the FA Cup, there's so many international breaks, you're then struggling to find a midweek point at which that can slot in. I think that then becomes the next issue. But as frustrating as for now, you've got to trust the powers that be not to make the same mistake twice, and to look at there's so many moving parts, aren't there? But to look at all stakeholders when deciding where is the best place to play it. But yeah, it's disappointing for fans. People have had an emotional response in some cases, which I completely understand. People have paid money for tickets to travel, to stay, and now that money might be gone. So it's frustrating, but I understand it from a player point of view.
Yeah, and Barry, is that kind of the way you're leaning towards with this one as well? Because as Charlie referenced there, I had 2 messages from people yesterday that were flying in for this game, that had already had the flights booked and the hotel and things like that. Obviously, that's money lost for them. I don't know the process in terms of potential refunds and things like that, so I can't answer that question. But yeah, what's your kind of thoughts on the way all this was handled? Because I agree with what Jamie said. It's not really fixing the problem. It's more just moving it, because there's so many games, and if Chelsea, get obviously far in the cups as well, this game is likely going to get scheduled on a random midweek, late in the season, and that kind of kills the attendance as well.
I mean, in politics, they'd call this kicking the can down the road, wouldn't they? That's all they've done. Just, we'll move that for another day. Won't worry about it just yet. As Charlie says, there are lots of moving parts to this. So, NUCO, as people are calling them, the WPLL, did, from what I understand, request that no English teams play on that date. Because obviously, as we said, UEFA did publish it about a year ago, their match calendar. So they knew what the dates were going to be. And I think what's frustrating in this respect is that if UEFA have put theirs out a year ago, I think actually, and it's very rare that you'll see me stick up for UEFA, but actually this to me feels like our problem, insofar as we should have been looking at that and going, probably a good idea not to put our top teams on the Sunday, because there's a possibility that our teams are going to be there. Now, let's be honest. I mean, greater minds than I will know whether or not this is the first time in a long time, but certainly it feels like a long time since there's been 3 English teams into the group stages. Like, that's my general understanding. It's not normal for this to be the case. So, in that respect, it's a little bit bad luck, isn't it? Because good luck in terms of the English teams going through. That's lovely for them, but not so great for the people in charge. I think it's our issue. We should have been booking those games on for the Saturday, and we should have been doing that from the start of the season, the minute we knew that there was the possibility that this was happening. But as with all things, women's football, they don't seem to want to put the effort into actually properly thinking about the best way to do these things. So I think it's probably easy to have a go at UEFA. It is a UEFA rule that the top 2 teams, top 2 seeded teams from each country don't play on the same day. That's a them thing. But it doesn't really matter, does it? Whether it was us against Chelsea, whether it was City's game, whether it was Arsenal's game, there was always the possibility that something like this was going to happen. And so for me, I think UEFA are, and again, words I never thought I'd say, blameless in this one. And our newbies have found a little wrinkle that they'll need to iron out, look going forward.
No, I fully agree. I think I put this.
Also, sorry, on the United side, probably a good thing at this point. So yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree with your first point. I think this was definitely on the league for me. As I said, I don't like the only instance that in recent memory for me for the women's team where this happened. It happened with us and Arsenal a few seasons back when it got rescheduled really late because I think Arsenal were getting deep in the Champions League. That moved one of our games, and that game then got rescheduled to a midweek fixture that we'd sold out at LSV, and then the attendance I think was quite poor that night on the Wednesday night. I think was that 22-23. I think it was.
I think so.
That's the only one in recent memory I can remember, but that's a little bit different they didn't know that Arsenal were going to make it through that knockout game to the next round. So that's slightly different to this case, whereas they've known these fixtures for a long time. Granted, didn't know which side draw Chelsea were going to be on, but for me, it's just common sense. You kind of think, well, there's a chance that Chelsea are going to be there. Let's not put that there and put it somewhere else. So, yeah, I agree. There's so many moving parts because Sky will have an influence in this as well. They had that game, been advertising it all week and everything else. They're not going to want to lose that game. It was a pick for them. So, yeah, I understand the frustration. I just feel sorry for the people. I hope people can get money back in some capacity. People that were traveling that had already had flights and hotels and all these various different things booked as well. But that's a whole other conversation around that one. So yes, we'll keep an eye on that when that game's going to be rescheduled. As I said, I'll be surprised if it's this side of Christmas, just the pure fact of Conti Cup and international breaks and Champions League. I can't see where they're going to fit that in this side of Christmas. So yeah, maybe in the new year we play Chelsea, which funnily enough, we don't play City till the new year either for the first time. So we wouldn't have played the last season's top two until January. On the current rate. Right, let's get into yesterday's game then, because there's a few things to talk about there. It wasn't an amazing watch, it wasn't an outstanding performance, but Jamie, I'll start with you because I'm not going to go through the lineup like we usually do because it was exactly the same as last week, so there's not too much to talk about there. But I just want to talk, obviously, we got off to a pretty good start. 4 minutes in, Clinton again, you could argue it's an Everton mistake, but I'd look at it on the flip side that it's Clinton's pressing, again, similar to how Jace got her goal against West Ham. High up the pitch. So, yeah, if you want to lead us off with the first and only goal of the game and just your thoughts around that kind of opening period.
I mean, well, to start off with, so yesterday I was in the United media office because I was going to cover the Premier League game later on. So I had it on YouTube on my screen, and I think I looked away or I had a different window up when that goal went in. So I had to watch it on replay. I didn't catch it live. But yeah, it's a mistake, but it's a forced mistake in that sense that you press the ball, limit their options, sort of cut off the passing lanes and pick it off, and that's what she did. And I think it's not just that, it's the way that you then drive it into the box, but there was pressure coming, and instead of sort of snatching at the chance, she had that sort of little bit of something else to cut inside and really open up the whole goal, and then it's just at our mercy at that point. And yeah, it was the perfect start. And then the game was sort of just a little bit not dead, but also not alive and kicking. It was like a bit in and out, some chances, not great chances, like mistakes here and there. The goal line clearance that wasn't really a goal line clearance was the result of mistake, obviously, from pressing at the other end. Yeah, and it was just a little bit meh, I don't know.
No, I think that's fair. I'm going to come back to the game as a whole in just a second, because I think there's obviously going to be a lot of chat about that. But Charlie and Barry, just following on this one, obviously Clinton's goal, as a lot of people obviously talking about Clinton in the chat. That's 2-2 for her now, which is not a bad return for a player already that we said that needed to start. She started both and scored both. So yeah, Charlie, if you want to start us off and then Barry follow us in on the goal itself and obviously Grace's 2-2.
Yeah, I thought she was really good. I think she carried on from where she left off at Old Trafford last week. I think she's come in and made the start that we all hoped she would. And she's actually she's really good with the ball at her feet, technically very, very good. But I didn't recognise, obviously didn't see it as much last year, how good her press was and how powerful she was. Like the amount of time she was, her in particular, because no one else was really doing it, she was carrying the ball forward. And Everton players just having to pull her back in the end, just grab her shirt and pull her back. And it was the same shame Kirsty Dow, doesn't know that's a foul. We'll had loads otherwise. But yeah, she is the focal point for everything we're trying to do clearly. And I agree with people in the comments saying that I hope the club are working on a new contract for her. But yeah, she was brilliant, and it we were sort of hoping, people in the ground were hoping that was going to be the start of a bit of the floodgates opening, like it has been against Everton the last few games. And there were a couple of chances here or there, but it ended up being a bit of a damp squib, really, for being honest. But yeah, Grace was the shining light again, and I think as long as she keeps performing like that, we're going to manage wins as we go through the season. Just need a little bit more from the players around her as well, I think.
Yeah, I felt, like I say, it's a blinding start to the game, really. And you would have hoped after the 4th minute scoring that goal that we would have built on that. I think what I like about it is we spoke about this prior to the West Ham game, which was that we want to win the ball. You know, Skinner said we want to win the ball higher up the pitch. Jays did a perfect example of that for the first goal against West Ham at Old Trafford. And right here, you know, from the sublime to the ridiculous at Walton Hall Park, we had the same situation. This time, obviously, it wasn't, you know, chasing down the defender in quite the same way, but she took advantage of what was some shoddy defending by the same token, and then really, really impressed with how she was just ready to pounce all the time. You know, I think the endeavour along the front was quite good. So, yeah, I think you've got to be pleased with it. And I think the scary part of all of this is, again, you've got people talking about a contract for Grace. The mad thing is that it feels like she's a new signing. So you don't feel like, you know, it feels a bit odd after 2 games to be going, oh, we should be offering her a new contract, because it feels like she's only been here since the start of the season. So it feels a little bit weird. But then, of course, remember the fact that she's actually been here for 2 years already, and just hasn't had the opportunity to play. And I don't know, I suppose it just makes you wonder, you know, why she had to go away. But yeah, I mean, if this game was a song, it would have been The One and Only by Chesley Hawkes, because it was just that one goal. That was all we needed, that 4 minutes to defeat Everton.
No, absolutely. I've been massively. It is. I agree with you. I've never thought of it like that. It is weird talking about a new contract for already when we've only seen her twice now. Obviously, I know we saw her in Toulouse in that pre-season game 2 years ago, but like, it does feel a bit weird. But I do agree. I think that's the one out of all the players that are out next season or next summer, Grace is obviously the big one, because that will be bad if she walks obviously on a free after what is looking like she's going to have a stellar season, hopefully, for the rest of it as well. So fingers crossed. Grace, if you're watching this, we'll help chip in if you're not gonna put it up. I'm joking, by the way. Obviously, we don't get involved in all that before anyone comes for the channel. But yes, do sign if you get that opportunity. Obviously, a lot of love for Grace in the chat, and I have put the player of the match poll in the chat. To be honest, looking at the percentages, I don't know why I bothered, because this is on course for being one of the biggest margins we've ever had on a player of the match poll. So yeah, you can vote on that if you want, but I think we've already got a clear winner. But second, third, and fourth, yeah, it's all up for grabs. If you want to vote for any of the other 3 that are on that list. So for those of you who are watching and not commenting or not bringing up the chat, it's Clinton, Tullis-Joyce, Riviere, and I did put Mallard on this one. Although she only played 30-odd minutes, I said to Charlie backstage, I think she did more in 30 minutes than a lot of players did throughout the whole game. And that, I think, counts for something, which we'll obviously talk about as we go on. Right, let's talk about the game as a whole. I'm not going to split it half by half. I just want to kind of talk about the whole kind of game. And Jamie, I'll come to you first on this one, because Vic mentions something interesting. I was going to bring this up when we were speaking about it's particularly the first half. Obviously, that long injury to Gabara in that first half as well. United were looking okay, you know, up until that injury. And that injury definitely kicked the life out of both teams. There was a 10-15 minute period after that injury, and neither team really did a lot. And that, for me, definitely took not the sting out of the game, but definitely didn't help. What was your kind of thoughts, particularly on that first half, but the game just overall? Because it wasn't as Charlie said, you think you score 4 minutes in, you're going to kick on, you're going to score 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, like we have done in the last couple of seasons. But it wasn't quite that way.
Yeah, obviously when you score early, you expect to keep going, especially was it this game last season was 5-0, the season before it was 3-0. There's been a 7 against Everton at home last season and a 4 as well, I think it was. So yeah, I think it's difficult because obviously at the start of the season there's been a decent start in week 1. You expect to keep it going. I'm not in the sort of business here of making excuses, but it looked like it was pretty windy. That pitch is always very susceptible to weather because of the lack of buildings around it. And yeah, I think sometimes when you don't play well, maybe just the most important thing is to actually win, because United have played those kind of games before and not won. There's been so many examples of having a 1-0 lead and losing it at the end, or not being able to sort of break through. Obviously, that game against Everton in, I think it was February 2023, the 0-0 at home, failing to break them down, and that essentially cost the title almost. So actually winning the game, I think, stands out as a positive, even if the performance wasn't really that enthralling and that, inspirational. The fact that they could actually grind it out, they got a second goal at the end, but yeah, because Chelsea have sort of made a business of doing that kind of thing over the years. How many games a season do they win by, scoring 1 goal here, snatching it, and that kind of thing. So the fact that United can actually do that is a positive in itself. So the two kind of things, they're not mutually exclusive. You can be disappointed by the performance, but you can also be pleased by the result. So maybe that's sort of the way that I would look at it.
Yeah, I mean, Charlie, you were obviously there as well. You were chatting to myself about throughout the game. What did you kind of make of it less of that first half? Obviously, the injury, obviously, as I stand by, I think that definitely killed a bit of the game off. But yeah, what did you make of it overall? And do you agree with kind of what Jamie said there? Maybe disappointed with the performance, but happy with the result overall.
Oh yeah, but it's a winning. It's the business of winning football games, isn't it? So as long as we win, for now, it's okay. But I do think there is a bit of cause for concern, because it's similar issues, I think, to ones we've seen last year, perhaps in a different guise, but a similar thing. There were other opportunities in the first half. I think Turland had an opportunity. I mean, we were the absolute other end behind Fallon's goal, but I think Turland was about 6 yards out, and I wonder if he's feeling the pressure a little bit, struggling in the system that she's in, which sounds mad. We might talk about that later. But kind of, we were talking earlier, weren't we, that the system should suit her, but for some reason it seems not to be, and you'd fully expect her to bury the chance that she had where she was within 6 yards and there was no one anywhere near her, but it almost looked like it went out for a throw-in. It was bizarre. I mean, there were some bright points. I mean, we might get onto it later. Fallon tullis-joyce in the first half made a couple of really important saves. I think there was one where she made herself really, really big. It was on the half volley from the Everton player, and she took that really well. So really impressed by her, claimed a lot. But yeah, it was just, it wasn't like Everton were brilliant. I just think we were quite lackluster. We were quite slow. There were times where, and this is probably as a result of not playing. Like if you want to play wingers, like if you want to play as a winger, you don't play Alatun as a winger. If you want, or even as a left-sided forward, really, do you? So there were opportunities there where she had the ball and she would make the run and then stop. Whereas someone better suited to the position that she was playing in would take on the fullback and would add that width, whereas she was just wanting to cut in a lot, and it was stifling at times. But I don't really fully put that blame at her door, because she's in a position where she's not used to being. She wants to cut inside, and it just didn't quite work out for all sorts of reasons. I think it'll be interesting what the long-term plan is. I don't that was the only issue. I think we're struggling a little bit at centre-back in some areas. People have mentioned it. I think also as well, I know we're just about the first half, but my brain's going all over the place here. I blame the illness, bit pinball brain. But like people talked about in the second half in the chat, when Simi and Hinata came on and Mallard, it added a bit of life to the game. And I just think Dominic Sampson, play her at centre-back. Simi Awujo, play her in the middle of the park, because she's big as well. Like Simi was winning a lot of headers. It was hard to kick the ball high through the air. But there were times in that second half where every time Fallon took a goal kick, Awujo won that ball. and she knocked it on and gave Mallard something to run onto, and we nearly scored a couple of times from that. So it just seems all a little bit sort of, what was it we say, Barry, before last season, square pegs round holes at times. And I think what's frustrating for fans, and what I found frustrating, is it feels so unnecessary that the position we're in now with the squad that we have, square pegs and round holes is a nonsense, I think, if I'm being completely honest, because it's stifling players.
Yeah, I definitely want to get onto that whole left side as a whole conversation piece, because as people will have seen my tweet earlier, shameless plug, go and look at that, because I kind of break that down a little bit as to the big difference I found between West Ham and Everton, and it's backed up by a few stats for those of you who love your stats on that one. But Baron, what did you make of it? Because it's just like, we got the win, which is the main thing. To be honest, I'll take that. If we're going to win 1-0 for the rest of the season, win the league, I don't really care, because ultimately you win the league at the end of it. But yeah, it was weird, I find. Are you kind of on the same page as Charlie? What did you make of the game kind of overall there?
I'm going to pass. Is the honest answer. Everybody's got himself all over excited, and it is. What I do is I look there. Sky Sports, shameless plug. We're second in the league. There's only 2 teams in the league so far this season in the 2 games that have got 6 points. That's us and the mighty Chelsea. How did Arsenal get on? I hear you cry. Well, they're only on 4 points. The mighty Manchester, they're only on 4 points. We, on the other hand, are on 6. Count them, 6. Sorry, my hand was missing. 6 points. And ultimately, whether you play brilliantly, whether you play terrible, that's the beauty of the league table. Is, last year we weren't playing so great and it didn't look good. This year, all right, we've not had a great game against Everton. I mean, to me, the biggest positive about the fact that we haven't played well against Everton is that Imara's not going to be able to come in here and moan about Anakita Paris only scores against Everton and that's why you score 5, all that jazz. Don't need none of that. What I'm happy about is we won the game. Now, actually, what's really interesting is, apart from Chelsea, who just decided to absolutely wallop their side 7-0, poor old Palace, we and City and Arsenal both won their matches 1-0. And when you look at the stats, I mean, let's be honest, right? In the nicest possible way, Sean, cover your ears. City were playing Brighton and Arsenal were just playing Leicester. And I wouldn't hear a massive rhetoric around the fact that these guys have only won 1-0. They'll just be happy about the fact that their team won, because you get the same number of points winning 1-0 as you do for winning 10-0. The only difference, of course, is the goal difference, which has yet to be a massive thing, I think, for the WSL. What's really interesting is when you compare the Arsenal game and ours, though, similar number of shots. So as far as Arsenal and United go, very, very similar sort of numbers, very similar sort of performance. And again, but it's Everton, but it's Leicester. And yet they won. And nobody would be sitting here now and suggesting that Arsenal are not going to be potential top 3 candidates. I mean, for goodness sake, they're in the UWCL group stages. So whichever way you want to look at it, that's an area that we aspire to be getting to. It does change when you look at the City game against Brighton, these top 6 contenders, as Sean likes to mention here. 20-odd shots they had against them. City absolutely decimated Brighton, but only scored the 1 goal. So it doesn't matter which way you go. If this had been the other way around and we created 500 chances and we only scored the 1, people who win not clinical enough in front of goal. As it is, we had 10 chances. There was only 1 clear-cut chance in the entire game, and that was thanks to the effort of Grace Clinton. We were better at passing. Everything was better. Our goalkeeper was better. She had more saves as well, which is ironic, considering that literally every shot they had, Super Fallon managed to save the ball. So, we could sit here and we could dance the little dance and go through absolutely everything and do all of that jazz. But let's be absolutely honest. What it comes down to, Connor, is this.
I mean, you can believe that.
Not only can I, but I do.
You believe away. I'm not going to knock your beliefs on that one. I'm going to need a bit more converting, I think, and into believing that one, but because I'm not so convinced as of yet. No, I mean, I tweeted this yesterday.
You think better when you disagree with me anyway, so I'll just wait till match week 16 when you finally jump on the bandwagon.
Oh yeah, I'll be jumping all over it if we're in the race by then. But no, I did tweet this yesterday. I do think the league is a lot stronger. Palace game aside, that seems a bit of an anomaly, to be honest. And to be fair, I will argue, Palace actually put up a good showing against Chelsea for about 40 minutes or so in that game. I actually thought they were pretty good. And then the floodgates just opened for whatever reason. But the league is definitely stronger this year. We saw that with some of the pre-season results. There were some big, upsets in pre-season. And people don't like to look at pre-season results, but I look more at how the game is played, and the likes of Leicester and the likes of Brighton and these kind of teams. Granted, it's Everton in terms of a 1-0 win there. Now, don't get me wrong, if we're still struggling in these kinds of games throughout the whole season, then I think you could look at it a bit different. But I think 2 games in, I'm not too worried from that point of view. My big issue still stands from the left-hand side, which is something I want to get to in just a second. So I think that's, as Charlie mentioned, was it square pegs, round holes, all that kind of thing. And it's very much self-inflicted, I feel. So, Jamie, I want to come to you on that particular point. I mean, you can go off on a tangent if you want as well, but the reason I'm focused on the left-hand side in particular is because we've got 2 players. Galton, not a natural left-back. Toon is not a natural left winger. So I would argue that's 2 players out of position. Now, the argument is that, and I think Mark spoke about this, I can't remember whether it was the press conference before Everton or the press conference before West Ham, where he said about it's essentially 2 in 2 10s, an inverted winger for Tooney. So you have your 2 kind of 10s with Tooney and Clinton. What have you made of that side in particular? Because for me, that is, if this system's got a flaw, that for me is it. Because a lot of Everton's attacks came down that side. We didn't create anything down that side because Leah wasn't as high as she was, further forward as she was against West Ham. Do you think that's an area United need to change and address in these kind of things? Because obviously we know Gary George has come out from an injury. Sandberg's obviously out with an injury as well, so there's not a lot that he can fully do there. But Tooney's position in particular, there's a lot of chat around this in terms of how you fit them in. What would you be doing there in terms of those 2 positions in particular?
I think on the left side, obviously she's not a natural winger, so if you want width on that side, it has to come from deeper, which obviously did happen against West Ham because Leah Galton was probably maybe the most consistent threat, certainly in the first half, getting forward. In the press conference before Everton, I asked Mark about her position, Galton, and he basically said that is the option in a game where they expect to have a lot of the ball, a lot of attacking. If United aren't doing attacking and she's only defending, then it doesn't work, and that's when they would go for a more defensive left back. So essentially, it almost looks like she's playing 2 positions. In one, that she's a left back, but also she's a left winger, and it worked against West Ham, and it clearly didn't work against Everton in quite the same way. If she's high, then Toon doesn't stay wide; she sort of drifts across, and you were getting that against West Ham and not against Everton in the same effectiveness. So it does a lot. I think moving forward, it will depend on fitness and availability. Obviously, if we're including Galton now, there's 3 available, or when everybody's fit, there'll be 3 available. Accounting for that Hannah Blundell won't play again this season. So there's different options. It's just that the options aren't really available right now. And for being the start of the season, that's not an ideal position to be in. But Gabby George is obviously getting more minutes. So I think for the majority of games, she will be the starter because that was obviously the plan last season. For the long-term injury, that's why it didn't happen. I think Leah Galton is like almost the alternative option for games where they expect to play to be attacking a lot more. Certainly not against like big teams unless there is literally nobody else. It would require a bit of change, but you also got Dominique Janssen is a left back as well as a centre back and a midfielder. So again, she'd be a more defensive. So I think there are options. I think it's just maybe a little bit hamstrung at the minute. And I'm talking mostly about left back here rather than left wing. But I expect that to work itself out in due course, assuming that players are available.
No, absolutely. And Charlie, I'll throw this over to you, and I'm just going to bring this on screen. I'm going to move whichever way it is because this is going to come down the middle of the screen. But against West Ham, when you look at the average position. You look at number 11, which obviously is Galton. She is right up alongside Toon in the opposing half. She's essentially, that's kind of where you want, in a 4-4-2, that's where your left mid would be essentially. She's right up alongside Toon, very high. When you compare that to Everton, Galton's in her own half. She's not as close to Toon as she was against West Ham. Now, that to me is, I mean, when I said to you, Charlie, backstage, when Toon drifts central, her, Nelson's, Turlin and Grace, I mean, that's such a small margin. They're all kind of just stood next to each other. Whereas West Ham, it's a lot more spread out. Jace is providing the width on the right, Galton on the left. And for me, that was the difference. Galton wasn't getting forward as much. She's not providing that width. So we didn't really have an attacking outlet down the left. And because Jade's being told essentially to stay back, there's your back three with Jade, Maya and Millie. There's no real overlap on the right-hand side as well. So that's where, for me, there's a slight issue with this. Because if Galton's not forward and Toon is on the left, you don't have an attacking outlet down the left, and you become very one-sided and easy to defend against. Is that kind of how you see it as well? I apologise, I've just thrown all this information at you and got to answer the question. But is that kind of how you're looking at it as well? Or
that looks like the age-old adage of, you fit you on the postage stamp, girls, move. That's what my teacher used to say, my PE teacher used to say when I was at school. I promise I'm not 90, but that's what she used to say. I don't like how deep Jade Riviere is. That was a thing that put me off there massively. Because I feel like in the game against Everton, the times when we looked like we had a little bit of attacking intent was when she drove forward with the ball. But that was far too infrequent, really, for my liking. I just think if you wanted Mia Galton to push forward and play as a left winger, but from the left back position, just play her as a left winger. Like, who's play her as a left winger? And then slot Aoife Mannion in somewhere. He's an actual defender. I don't know. She was there, wasn't she? She was on the bench. There was no movement happening either. It was very congested. You could see that. And you could see players stopping and deliberately cutting in. So what you want, if Toon wants to drift in, it's not fine. That's clearly not what he wants her to do, but that's what she's doing instinctively. I don't understand why Leah, as the left winger hybrid full-back player, isn't stretching the pitch, isn't using the width. I don't know why Jade Riviere isn't pushing up either. That's clearly a decision, especially when you've got Janssen, who could swap back as a third centre-back if required. That's what I thought, at the start of the season, that's what I thought it was going to be. When that first lineup came out, I thought it was going to be three at the back and then Galton and Jade Riviere just playing quite high and then popping back into a back five as and when you need it. So I don't know. I wasn't expecting, you kind of pre-mentioned before, Conor, you were going to show that heat map of where the players were. I didn't know it was going to be that bad. The only positive is Jace looks like she's still trying to stretch the pitch a little, isn't she? And she's staying fairly wide compared to the others. But it's just, it looks like you said, players that don't really know what their role is at this point, or what they're meant to be doing, or how to fulfill their role. But then Barry says we're only 2 games in, and we've won both games, so you assume it will get better. But I don't know. I'm just being pessimistic. I think I'm still feeling the after effects of last season's league campaign. Barry, you're gonna have to drag me out of it. But I just think if you've been practicing that all pre-season, you've not been practicing effectively. I would have thought. I don't know. I mean, Jamie's right. If Sandberg's not fit as she, Gabby, you don't want to rush back. But it's still not working. Like if you like even the Tooney thing, if you want her to play out wide, don't play her. Play Melvine Mallard. Like, play someone who's played in that position successfully. But that's a big call, isn't it? That's a big call to not play her, or play her and not play Clinton, or whatever else is, whatever the ripple effects of that are. Barry, come on.
Am I going straight in?
Yeah.
I wasn't going to, but I think Charlie wants you to, so I was just going to let you go for it, to be fair.
Okay.
Fine.
Again, we're 2 games in. Now,
I know I said that.
Anyone who goes over to the men's channel will know how annoyed I am about Diogo Dalot currently being the left back for the men. So if anybody pops onto there, I'm not going to sit here and be hypocritical. Do I think that Leah Galton is the ideal left back for Manchester United Women FC? No, I do not. But is she the best stopgap that we could possibly have? Absolutely, she is. we've got two other players, well, three, obviously, because Dominique's just been mentioned as well. The obvious answer is that Gabby George is supposed to be at left back, but we've got to take it carefully with her. If we just remember back to the outrage that people had when Jade Riviere was injured and we just threw her back on the pitch, we're talking about player welfare. We have to take it, carefully. If we don't, we could end up with, an Aoife Mannion type problem, whereby she has yet again another ACL, and we wouldn't want that. So we've got to look after her. That'll be the first point. So she does need to be introduced slowly. Again, quite interesting that she didn't get the opportunity to play at the weekend, but there we are. Lots to talk about Dominique Janssen perhaps going into left back. I just think that actually everybody at the moment in the chat, all here, just everyone, is all just getting a little bit overexcited. Yes, it's only Everton. Yes, it was only West Ham. But until we actually lose a game, we haven't conceded yet. And it's not like these people haven't tried. So we've not conceded a goal. We've scored 4. We've got 6 points. We're doing better than 10 other teams in the WSL. You can only take each game as it comes. And we have to accept as well that this is an absolutely brand new set up, strategy, team. Mark Skinner's trying something different. Now, a lot of people say, let's just put Leah Gorton back into the left wing. Well, if you do that, Ella Toon's got to move. So if Ella Toon moves, where does she go? Well, presumably back into the middle. Well, in that case, where does Grace Fitton go? Where does Dominique Janssen go? All right, maybe you throw Dominique Janssen down to left back. Well, who's going to be the 6? Oh, Lisa Nolson's there. Nobody's going to whinge at Lisa Nolson. She's not a 6. So that's going to happen. In which case, then you need to bring in Hayley Ladd. And then when we don't do well there, people are going to turn around and go, whoa, why is Hayley Ladd playing there? Lisa Nolson. And honestly, it's the same over on the men's channel. People just constantly whinging about what they think should be happening because they believe that this idea that whatever else you say can never be proven wrong because it hasn't happened. So, with that in mind, we're going to win the league. I don't know how many more times I've got to keep saying it. Just chill out. This is it. This is the year. This is the one, as the Stone Roses sing every time we come out onto the pitch. This is the one until it's proven otherwise. Is it ideal? No, but it's going to take them a while to get used to playing with each other. We've got brand new players in there. We've got Terry. I'm sorry, I still can't get over this. I've got told off for calling her his. Now the people calling her Terry, and it's not even a bleeding name. We're sticking in a brand new centre midfielder. We don't have a player who's played literally every single game for the club in Katie Zellum. We've got a big old change of how people are playing and where they're going. It's not ideal to see Ella Toon out on the left-hand side. Of course it's not. I'd much rather see someone who's used to playing in those positions. But ultimately, the decisions he's made at this point in time have paid off. No, it wasn't the greatest football match. We'll have to see how it goes. We've got Liverpool coming up in the Conti Cup. That'll be very interesting. I'm really intrigued to see how that Conti Cup game goes because traditionally the changes that get made for the Conti Cup sort of make or break where we go. And if you remember, Connor, the time that we first met properly, that was, I believe, a Conti Cup game, and it was superb. But there wasn't too much rotation at that point when we was doing that. So we obviously had the terrible Conti Cup run of the following year where we just decided not to change. Well, sorry, we just changed too many people and we didn't have the depth that we wanted. This time we do. So it will be very interesting to see how he does that. And then obviously we've got the weekend off with there being no game against Chelsea. So our next game will then be Spurs. And that will be a bit more of a test. It'll be interesting to see how we get on against them. There's lots of people, like I say, saying, these are teams that have done quite well. I think you go in there, nick whatever, a win over Liverpool, do the same against Spurs, everybody's smiling again. It feels like it's only us that can be upset about the fact we won 2 games.
I don't think it's necessarily upset. It's cause for concern.
Last year was so
downbeat. We're on here to talk about the game, so we're talking about the game.
But can we not talk about it a bit more positively? Yes, it would be nice, but actually, we've won it. This time last year we were playing like that and we weren't winning. So that's a massive plus. Massive.
I'd argue Bristol.
Yeah, plus.
But my big issue is purely because I agree. I can't remember which one of you said it then about big calls. Skinner for me has got a massive call to make with Alassou. For me, he cannot keep playing her in that position. It's going to get found out, and we're just not going to have that attacking outlet. Now, I don't think he will. Let me just put that out there. I think once we've got Gabby fully fit and Sandberg back in, I think Leah probably moves to the left and Tooney moves anyway. I think this is probably where we're at the moment. Then obviously the question becomes, well, where does Tooney go? One of those midfielders come out. He cannot take Grace out of that team. So for me, it's probably going to be Lisa that comes out. Now, I'm not against that. That's kind of what I want to see anyway, because I don't think Lisa has been exceptional in the first 2 games that we've seen. I don't know. Tooney's at least a lot. I agree. That's what I would be doing once we've got Gabby up to speed. I think Gabby probably plays on Wednesday night, and that's why she didn't play yesterday. I think there's probably managing that a little bit. So that's what I want to see, because I'm a little bit. Every attack we've conceded pretty much has come down that left-hand side already, and we're already 2 games in. And that, for me, if you keep noticing a pattern, and granted it's only 2 games, I think I'd rather us fix that now than just get to a team. We got Arsenal in a month? Is it start of October? No, start of November. I think we play them 6th of November or something like that. 3rd. I'd rather we fix it now than get to that game and get battered and then go, oh, now we need to fix it. So that's where I'm at. I'm more than happy with us. I said this at the start. We keep winning games, we're going to win the league. So we keep doing that. I'm not too fussed by the end of the season. November the 3rd. Thank you. I knew it was early November. I couldn't remember what it was. But that will be my worry. Well, no, it's not even a worry. Like I said, it's just a cause for concern at the moment. Because for me, for the rest of the team, I did say this in pre-season, that this system will benefit some players and hinder others. And I think that's what we're seeing. I think Grace is benefiting from this. I think Jace is really benefiting from it as well.
You get into it when you play it.
Hindering it.
And that's what they've got to do. They've got to play it. And then we see how the system works. At the end of the day, the world has told him off because he's not tactically astute and he doesn't change his tactics and he doesn't change anything. He's changed things, and he's still getting pelters for it because he hasn't changed it with the way that you want it to be. I'm just going to sit here in my happy little world, let Mark Skinner make the decisions that he wants. So I'll tell you what, at the end of this season, 1 or 2 things is going to happen. Either Manchester United are going to be champions or Mark Skinner probably won't be running the club anymore. And either way, some people are going to be happy. So I'm just going to enjoy it. Enjoy my lovely little merry trip down Manchester United Women FC 24-25. Come and join me if you like. It's lovely over here. The water's cool.
You can do that. I'll continue dissecting. but yeah, I agree. And I've said this all the time. I think, it's pretty obvious, obviously, with only the 1-year contract that and I think that's why we've seen him change it, because I think he knew he needed to change something going into this season. The league form was not good last year. And Barry, you always say he'll live and die by those decisions. And that's why I said at the start, he can't change his system. He's got to stick with it. You can't have a whole pre-season training on a system and putting players in these positions and everything else, and then just ditch it after 2 games. He's got to make it work because that's what they've trained on and everything else. Now, granted, there's going to be some games you want to change it, in those kind of moments, but he's got to make it work now. And as I said, we don't know. We don't know whether this is going to work or not, but we'll see. But I am intrigued. In fact, now I'm going to come to that as a separate point when we come to the Conti Cup in a second. Do I do player of the match now? In fact, no. You wanted to talk about a positive thing. Fallon is somebody I wanted to mention. Because, Jamie, one thing I noticed and have noticed in the first 2 games, and I'm so sorry if there's any Mary fans in the chat, but the one thing I love about Fallon that Mary never used to do is she comes off her line. For me, last season, we conceded quite a few goals because Mary was pretty much stuck to a line, and that's fine. She was an exceptional shot stopper. I'm not taking that away from her. What I've noticed in these first 2 games, Fallon likes to come off her line a lot. Granted, I think Maya Letitia got one straight in the head because Fallon came clattered into her, but I love that about her. What have you made of her in these first 2 games? Because she's very vocal as well. I think Mark spoke about this in pre-season. You can hear her, when the game's going on and things like that. But what have you made of her since coming in? Because there's a lot of talk around her, kind of pre-season about whether United needed another goalkeeper or not.
Yeah, I think that was strange when there was a lot of talk about who's going to replace her, because in a sense, the replacement happened a year ago, didn't it? Really, I think that was always the idea, whether it happened then or whether it happened now. she's clearly a very good goalkeeper from where she's been at before. She's really tall, so that helps. Certainly when you say about coming for crosses, claiming balls, flying off a line, all that kind of thing. She's got the shot stopping as well, because we've seen that. I don't think she's been tested massively in these first 2 games. I can't recall more than maybe a couple of saves. And I think, she's obviously had a year in the club as well, so that helps. I know that people don't always like new signings to come in and sit. Sometimes it does work, sometimes it doesn't work. I didn't particularly understand the calls last season for the goalkeeper to be rotated more often, because if there's one position that you can't really rotate, I guess it's that. But I think impressive start. I think there'll be more to come. But like, she's not really been tested, and I think that's a plus so far. I don't know, but we've only seen little bits.
No, I tend to agree with that. I will just bring up Michael's comment there. I don't know whether you saw this.
I don't really understand what that means.
That's a good thing. I'm taking that as a good thing.
Is it?
I think so. It's quite soothing.
Well, as long as he doesn't mean like one of those massages you get where they really dig into you. That wouldn't be pleasant. But generally, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good thing. Michael, you might have to... there we go. It is. It's a good thing. So, Charlie, what did you make of it? Because you mentioned the save early on, that kind of half. It was a good strike, but I can't remember which Everton player it was, but it was a really good hit on kind of the half volley at the back post. I said she came out for a couple. Lot mentioned one when I think Millie made a bit of an error, and Fallon had to save that one as well. She's not been tested ridiculous amounts, but she has done what she's had to do kind of when it's come about.
Yeah, we don't want to be in a situation where we've got a goalkeeper having to make 15, 20 saves a game. If that's happening defensively, something's wrong, isn't it? But I think she was called upon 2 or 3 times. I think the 1v1 was the big one for me, when Millie played a really poor pass that was cut out, and she was off her line quickly and really closed down the angles, made herself big. It was Peter Schmeichel-esque. So handball goalkeeper. And I think she stood her ground. I think the shot that's on the half volley, I think that was the player that got injured. What's her name? Is it Gabala or something?
Yeah, Gabara, yeah.
Took that really, really well. She's done what we needed to do when we needed to do it, and there was a couple of ones straight at her, but she held on to them well. Something I did notice about her as well was she slowed the game down really well when necessary. At times when you thought it was maybe starting to get a little bit away from us and it was swinging in Everton's favour, she was really slow. Like, she slowed play down, going to get the ball, taking time over goal kicks and bits and pieces. So some in-game management there from her, which was good. She was also really vocal, which was something Mary Earps was. So I think you needed someone who was going to come in and be a character and be a personality. Probably the only again, it's questionable to chat. Lots of people in the comments have talked about her kicking in the game. Like, the wind was ridiculous. And there's no getting away from that. It was ridiculous. So when she was trying to kick it long, it was tough. But I thought she had a great game. I was really pleased. I think the pressure was probably on her because they've not got another more senior goalkeeper in to back her up. And Mary Earps, best goalkeeper in the world, according to some, has moved on. I think that's big pressure. I think it's probably the hardest position to play in because everyone remembers if you make a mistake. But I thought she was brilliant. I was speaking to people at the game. I fully expect her to start the Conti Cup game. I think any Conti Cup games where we're playing WSL level opposition, I think she will play. Because as much as I like the idea of academy products, I don't think Middleton Patel is ready to be between the sticks on a regular basis for us. So I think she will play every game. I do worry if something happens. She only got booted in the face with a ball. That worried me. So yeah, look after her between games, wrap up in cotton wool. But she was great. So you can probably guess who my pick was, the player of the match, actually.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong there. There's a bit of criticism in terms of her distribution. I think that's throughout her career. When she was in the NWSL, she had the same criticism, I think, labelled at her. But to be honest, I said when we signed her, I'd rather her keep the ball out of the net than be good with her feet. And let's be honest, Mary wasn't exactly great with distribution either last season. A lot of our goals conceded came from that us trying to play out from the back, and Mary's distribution was a little bit questionable, to say the least. Yeah, Baron, what have you made with Fallon? That's 2 clean sheets. Can't get much better than that. She's had to make a few saves, but I said for me, it's the commanding nature of it. The fact she is very good. She's coming off her line and commanding the box. That's what that's what I want to see in a keeper anyway.
Fallon, Tullis-Joyce, PTJ. What can you say about Fallon? I'll tell you what you can say. We had 1 shot on target against us against West Ham United, and that shot was saved. We had 4 shots on target against us for the game against Everton, and all 4 of those were saved. So absolutely everything that's been thrown at her so far, regardless of who it is a shot, and she has saved them. Now, this is what annoys me a little bit, is that we were sat here at the beginning of last season. I distinctly remember sitting here having this conversation about how Mary Earps I nearly did Trebuchet, but it's been such a long day today. I don't really have the waxing lyrical poetry gene in me right this moment. But you never know. Stranger things have happened, but it would take a lot. Correct truth. She has 100% save percentage, which is amazing. What frustrates me a little bit is we were stuck here at the beginning of last season talking about how Mary Earp should probably be the number 2 because she clearly didn't want to stay here. She was going off muttering about PSG and wanting to go off. And when are these products going to learn, by the way? Like Leslie Russo last year, I must go because I want to play Champions League football. It's very important to me. Out you go then, Leslie. It's taken her an whole year before she's been able to get over to there. And now Mary Earps, I'd love to get some Champions League football. See you, PSG. How you doing? So they just don't know, do they? It was going to take her another year till she gets the chance to do that. So unlucky. But now I've got that bit off my chest. I think it's frustrating. She could have had a whole year. And she could have been even more embedded. And what a season last season could have been had we actually had PTJ in goal. The second thing I'd say about it is it's really interesting. And it never fails to surprise me. So PTJ, she might have trouble with kicking. Okay, so if she's in a situation where she has trouble with kicking, I loved it because there was a nice little thing there that said, but that can be worked on. Well, so can everything. Leah Gorton at left back. Ella Toon at left midfield. All of these things can be worked on. It's a choice of how you choose to approach life. And I just promise you, if you try and do things just a little bit more positively, you'll live longer. Right? I'm sure I should have died about 20 years ago, but yes, I'm still here, much to the chagrin of many. So there we are. I'm actually 139. You wouldn't imagine that, would you? But there we are. You see, I've lasted a very long time due to my positive nature. PTJ is unbelievable. She's not just the only Manchester United player to come on All for United WFC. She is also going to be the first Manchester United goalkeeper to lift the WSL.
We're going to have this all season. So stay tuned, everyone. it's going to be fun. Yeah. Doesn't have that trouble, does he, Barry? I have to worry about these things. Me and Jamie have got to worry about this.
It's more down here to be. What? And Charlie doesn't?
Yeah, to be fair, I probably
No, I don't. I don't even brush it.
I remember the one time you did brush it and I got really excited. Like, oh, it's lovely hair. And he was like, I just brushed it. That's all I did.
I didn't. The hairdresser brushed it. Do you know what? I'm actually going to the hairdresser on Saturday, so it might still look nice by Monday.
I actually can't remember the last time I went to a hairdresser.
Huh?
I can't remember the last time I went to a hairdresser. I started to hit a point where I was just going there just for them to shave that, and I'm not letting anyone near me with a knife. I've seen far too many videos for that. Connor's not seen these films, but danger. So yeah, I didn't bother. I've got my own one now, which is a nightmare. I've checked with an iPad watch because all my hair's here, which isn't helpful.
Go to one of my husband goes to Turkish Hairlines, brilliant name, where they do your beard and then they light a fire up your nose and in your little ear holes. You should go to one of those.
What?
It was a little bit later than 96, Mike, if I'm honest with you. Again, I will point out this is obviously the moment, isn't it? So it is there. It's just not in a very easy spot for people to notice. So it's not like it's gone entirely. It's just a little bit of a thing. No, it wasn't 1996. It was a little bit later. I was a bit like Prince William. He lost his hair at roughly the same sort of time as I did. So there you go. Maybe we're related. Maybe I should actually be king. I'm sure I was born before him. Imagine that. That'd be a thing, wouldn't it, if I was adopted? What a story that would be. I've totally derailed this. Go, Connor, go. I've got places to be soon.
I don't even know how we got on to that. Anyway, we are going to do player of the match around the shelf for player of the match, but I want to have a brief look ahead to Liverpool, with that being on Wednesday night. And now we don't have a game at the weekend. Charles just reminded me there's not going to be a match reaction show next Monday now. We will have a match reaction show for Liverpool, though, because we weren't going to due to the Chelsea game, but now we will because there is no Chelsea game. So we'll have that in later in the week as well. But yeah, Jamie, I'll start with you in terms of what you. It's kind of a two-part question. One, in terms of where you think the Conti Cup. I'm going to keep calling it that. I don't care that it's not the name anymore. Where you think the Conti Cup ranks in terms of a priority, and also in terms of Wednesday night, how much rotation you think we're going to see? Because for me, before that Chelsea game got rescheduled, I thought there was going to be a lot. Now the fact we don't play, I don't think there's going to be that much because there's nothing to rest for because we've got another week now to prepare and things like that. Where's your kind of thinking on those two questions?
Yeah, I think there's two parts, isn't it, between getting players who haven't played that much minutes and sort of pushing ahead with the sort of continuity and the familiarity of the team from the first 2 weeks. And in terms of maybe a priority, it's I think it's number 3, isn't it, overall? But it's one of those where it's like, if you're doing well, it's worth it. And if, you get into the knockout stage, then you sort of take it seriously, but it's not so much a priority maybe right now. I think that's the way that Liverpool see it as well. That last season, they really seemed to prioritise the league, and it showed in their Conti Cup results compared to the league results that they had. So depending on what they do as well, it will impact the game, and whether they rotate, because they did a lot last season, and it helped, and it was a benefit for them. So yeah, I think it's a winnable game, and it'd be good to win, and it'd be good to get minutes in legs, see more of the sort of the deeper squad. But like you said, I don't expect there to be so much as there might have been because of the fact that there's no game suddenly 3 days later. So I think maybe sort of 75% of where it was at for the week from the weekend.
Yeah, and Charlie, I'll throw those same kind of two questions over to you as well, because lots mentioning Simi and Salih. These are the kind of players I think will start. I think you're looking at for me, I think every player that came on yesterday probably starts. Tooney, I think, is going to be unavailable for this game for personal reasons anyway. So that's one change that is going to be in force. There's a couple of people talking about Watson and Sandberg. I will be amazed if Sandberg is back by Wednesday. Watson, I think that's more of a watch this space for her. Charlie, what do you make then on those two questions in terms of priority, but also this game in particular? Who are you wanting to see, and what are you expecting to see?
Who did you just say? Watson and who?
Sandberg.
Oh, right. I thought you said Sue Bird. I was like, who the heck is this academy player? It's because I'm right, guys. When I get poorly nose and stuff, I also get ear infections, so I'm a bit deaf. I'm sure that's what it is. Who's Sue Bird? And then I thought, is he saying Sue Barker? But I thought, no, she's a tennis or was a tennis player. Right, what do I think? I think you keep Turland in. I think you hope she gets a goal for her own state of mind. I think Mallard comes in because Toon won't be playing, and I think other than that, he'll keep the rest of it much of a muchness. I think maybe bring Muzzy Bizzett in for Jace. Maybe bring her in. She was busy against Everton, but yeah, I think it'll be much of a muchness. I think Mallard comes in. That's maybe it. I think, which is a shame because I'd love to see Emma Watson get some minutes, but I just think now that we haven't got the Chelsea game, I don't even think she'll be in there. Or she might sneak the matchday squad now that Tooney won't be there, mightn't she? But yeah, pretty boring response actually. I think it will just be the same.
It's an interesting one, isn't it, Barry? Because obviously this being the hardest, you would look on paper as of the 3 games in our group. Obviously with Everton and Newcastle. Again, those two same questions really, because a lot of names obviously floating about in the chat, and these are names that I had in my head, like Bizet and Mallard, Miyazawa, these types of players. Is that kind of where you're looking towards in terms of these kinds of players to because I remember actually doing the show with you pre-season, and you mentioned these games are the ones to get these players in. Is that kind of still your thinking now we're 2 games in?
It would be if we were playing Chelsea on Sunday, but we're not. So that does, I think, change your thinking, and for numerous reasons, which I shall go into, of which 2. The first of which is that it's Liverpool, and we owe them because they just sneaked in and finished 4th, just above us. And I'm not going to lie, that rankles with me just a little bit because, as we all know, 4th is ours. That's a Manchester United place. You can't just be going in there and sitting there. So I feel a little bit like I've been kicked out of our own house, and I don't like that. So I think that's an important point, that actually we should be looking to set a little bit of a marker down against them. Plus, we don't want the same problems as we had last year, where we end up with a reasonably good group for bit of group form, and then we get knocked out because somebody doesn't know how to do admin. So that's your first bit. The second bit is that actually the number of players that we've got to change, I'll be more tempted to do for the games against Everton and Newcastle. Threat level seems a little bit less for those. When you look at the players that we're bringing in, Melvin Mallard, I think she does deserve some time. Of course she does. As does Hinney, Rachel Williams. It'd be an ideal spot for her to get a go. I don't know if you would want Arujo and Lad, but I think certainly one of the 2 could get there. I'm never going to get tired of hearing her called Muzzy Bizet. That's always going to be one of my favourite names. Every time she says it, I giggle. But yes, it would be a good chance to see her. I just think, based on everything, and this is number 2 of what we've been talking about, if you want to get this system to work, you need to give them more time together to be able to do it. So if this is his preferred 11, we need to make minimal changes in order to try and embed that system further in top-level football. So you mentioned Ella Toon maybe not being there for Wednesday. So if there's no Ella Toon, I'd potentially make a change there. Perhaps that's where you give Bizet a chance to actually come and play, or Melvin Mallard. So I'll just be making the one change, start it, put it into place, and then bring loads of them on once we're 5-0 up.
Well, I hope that's the scoreline for a start. But yeah, I tend to agree. That's what I mean. The Chelsea game now not happening has changed my thinking in terms of this game, because I was very much going into it going, yeah, change 5 or 6, in terms of getting those players. Now I'm thinking we don't have a game. This is a decent enough chance to have another game for these players to learn it more and everything else. I would like to see a few rested. I think, like I said, I think for me, I think Gabby probably comes in. I think Gabby starts. I think one of the midfielders, I'm not decided which one, and Simi starts. And I think that front 3 changes as well. I agree with Charlie. I'd like to see Turner start, actually, because I think she needs a goal. Just keeping her in there for 67 minutes or so and hope that she can get one there. But the rest of the team, I'm not too fussed. Whether you're looking at, I would imagine, injuries aside, Maya's going to go through the whole season and play every single minute again like she did last season. Jade's another one. Would you maybe put Aoife there just to give Jade a bit of a rest? But again, because we're not playing for, 10 days after this one, after Wednesday, so there is a big rest gap. So yeah, I hope to see some of these, but I don't think it's going to be the wholesale change. It's not going to be the load of youngsters in there or everything else like people were maybe hoping it was going to be. That's for sure.
Part of me's tempted to just message Mark and see if he'll put Aoife Manuel at left back just so we can see Charlie's face.
Fully change the team. In answer to your question, Truth, Olivia Smith, I believe, played off the right. Well, she scored from the right anyway against West Ham. That is a threat, and I'm intrigued to see how Liverpool utilise her this season, because yeah, she's certainly a good player. But yes, I agree with it. Now I've said it, I agree with a lot of this. yeah, stop. Because again, 2 games running, for those of you who saw, she actually replied to us as well with this exact one as well. She is now still the most fouled player in the league. That's 2 games running now. She's been the most fouled player. And I think we may as well have that tweet saved in our drafts because she's going to be that.
If only there were referees whose job it was to protect them. Clown. But I have a question, because I couldn't see it because, again, height and perspective. When Jade got horrendously fouled and the player got a yellow card, and she also got a yellow card, Jade got a yellow card.
That was ridiculous.
She went like this. She just went, like, when a player gets fouled and they go, ref. And then she gave her a yellow card. I literally couldn't, well, I could believe it. I was absolutely flabbergasted.
I couldn't believe. I was speaking to someone at the time, and they were like, "Oh no, Jade's not been booked." I was like, "They have, like she has." I don't know what for, but she has.
Oh, give her a card. She literally just went because she was sick of being absolutely kicked in the back of the legs.
There was one tackle in particular. It was almost like a scissor tackle above her ankle. It's just like I don't get it. I don't know whether it's just because she's such a quick player. She's very nimble on the ball. She's going to draw fouls like that. But either way, it's getting a bit ridiculous now. With those kind of ones, but yeah. So now I've said that, Mark, don't play on Wednesday. Give her a rest. Save her for the WSL because we're going to need her against Spurs and Brighton and these kind of teams that we've got coming up in those ones. Right, we're coming to the end of the show now, so let's do player of the match and round this one off. Let's see. In fact, no, I'll end the poll in a second. I'll give you guys a few more minutes to vote while I go around the panel. Jamie, who would you have gone for player of the match and why?
I think sometimes when it's the match winner, it's kind of obvious that maybe you just go for Grace. That might be a bit of a cop-out. I agree with your point about Fallon before, but yeah, we'll go Grace.
Interesting. That's one for Grace. Charlie, you kind of gave yours away, I feel. Do you want to explain why?
Yeah, I voted for Fallon. I think the Grace goal was good, but after that we created very little, and it was Everton that had 2 or 3 chances that could have nicked them a point, and our goalkeeper did her job. The 2 or 3 times she was called upon, she did it very well. So I've gone for her.
So a different tab. Sorry, Barry, for yourself.
I think it has to be the big GC, Gemma Collins. Has to be. Clinton Cards. The Hillary Clinton Dempsey. That one. Gotta be. Like, honestly, we don't win that game without her being so brilliant at the very beginning. Would have been a very different game. Would have potentially required a bit more in terms of going forward. But yeah, I think would be mad not to go for Grace, although I'm absolutely delighted that PTJ did as well as she did.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's hard not to. Honestly, that was well, I was not expecting the Gemma Collins name drop. I feel like that's completely different, but there we go.
Not because she looks like Gemma Collins, but because GC is what she calls herself, isn't it? Just one out there.
Yeah, I think for me it's. I mean, I had 3 when we always do this and we put our 4 players together. I was thinking Grace, Jade, or Fallon, and I was kind of happy between any of those 3. So I kind of want to say it's going to have to be Grace, and I think Grace was definitely the best player on the pitch. But I do like to give a shout to Jade and to Fallon. I thought those 2 were excellent on the day as well. I think if Melvin had played the full game, I think she would have been in with more of a shout. But that 30 minutes, although she did quite a lot in those 30 minutes, I think maybe her a little bit on that one. But yeah, definitely a special mention to those other 2 as well, because they were definitely within my thinking when putting those together. And you guys do agree. Grace Clinton on 67%, Fallon on 20, Jade on 10, Melvin on 3. So quite a big margin for Clinton. Again, I don't know what the margin was last week, but she definitely won it by a fair margin last week as well. So it's 2 and 2. Literally everything. 2 wins, 2 goals, 2 player of the matches for... I think Barry's laughing at this one. I think
I am, and it's because I saw her on Dancing on Ice, and so the answer is probably not. When you watch Gemma Collins on Dancing on Ice, she properly face plants. Google that. TJ, because that's a giggle. It properly goes over like a sack of King Edwards. I said no, I don't think she could play left winger.
I've got this vision now of her just watching this channel, just like, oh, I've been name dropped. What's this? But yeah, I agree, and yeah, she is. She's a shining light at the moment. That's why I put it in the title of this video, because I think at the moment she is showing levels in terms of the other players around her as well. So hopefully she keeps that form up as we go, obviously throughout the season as well. But yeah, there we go. Jamie, before we wrap this one up, you've tweeted out not so long back that you've started a new little venture on Substack as well. So if you want to give that a shout out, where people can find it and just a little bit of information on that as well.
Yeah, so I've started a new thing. It's called United Women Online .substack.com. Basically, I used to do a lot of sort of what you would call like a United beat, sort of mostly 22-23 season. That kind of petered out because the media landscape for reporting women's football is still not brilliant. So I kind of toyed with this halfway through last season when I was getting a bit sort of fed up of not having a place to do things in the same way anymore. And then I thought, if I'm going to do this at all, anytime, it's now for the start of a new season. So this is hopefully the place where you'll still be able to get sort of the more regular content that other outlets or the more mainstream outlets can't always provide, because their resources are spread thinly across an entire league and wider. It's all free at the minute, so you can subscribe for free and everything will drop into your email inbox. I won't put you guys on the spot and ask you if you've subscribed already, because I don't know, I've got a subscriber.
I'm sure I have. It's out in these two that they haven't, but I'm sure I have.
The thing with Substack is longer term, I kind of want to introduce like a paid subscription level to it, keeping the majority of it still free, but charging for premium content that basically will allow me to do more of that, because that's kind of where it lies really. It's like the ability to dedicate your time to it. So if people are interested and they want to subscribe, please do. I've seen you put the link in the comments there. So yeah,
that one right there.
Support me.
It's definitely worth it.
Me.
Definitely make sure you go and check that out. I'll tweet it out after this show as well, but it's definitely worth it. Substack is definitely the way forward. And I'm going to be biased as well because I'm also on there, so, on a separate page. But that's a whole other conversation on that one. But yeah, so make sure you go and do that. I'll leave it in the description as well so people can find it.
It's the platform of the future.
Absolutely is. So yeah, make sure you're doing all of that. Oh God, this is going to be the theme for the season, now, isn't it? We're going to have a lot of this.
Now, how many other world leaders we can get out of this? So that's what we're going to try and do now. How can we get them all into it? We have to do it right now, everybody. You've got
I was going to say that. That's one for next show.
That's the big one. But yeah, who else can we get? Queen Elizabeth, President Clinton, where should we go?
But there we go. Oh, there you go. You've gained a subscriber already. So that's an extra one for you for the Substack. But yes, there we go. That rounds off today's show. Obviously, we will do a match reaction to Liverpool later on in the week. Somebody asked in the chat earlier on, I think it might have been you, Truth, about when we're going to do this potential draft show that we've had we said over the summer that we were going to do it, and it kind of just, United just kept making signings. So there wasn't really a slot for it at the end by the time we got to pre-season and everything else. Potentially, if people want to see it, we will do that on Monday. Essentially, all the show is, for those of you who follow our women's football channel, it is exactly the same way in terms of how the draft works. Everyone gets a pick. It's a random order, and you make the idea. This will be United women based. You make your United 11 from every United women's player that's ever played for the team, and we match up whose teams would be the best. Obviously, the order's random, so if you want a player in, you better hope that nobody else picks them before you do. But that's the idea. So if people want to see that, we'll do that on Monday, being that there's no match reaction show on Monday evening.
I get first pick, right?
No, you do not.
What?
Well, to be fair, if you get picked... Do you remember when we did the first draft on the women's football show and I was last on every... I reckon it's rigged.
That wasn't my fault. It's a random bleeding generator.
Well, I see. Rigged allegations. So yeah, that's potentially coming on Monday if people want to see that. I want to do it, to be fair, because it's a little bit of a different kind of show. And as I said, we're not playing now, so it'll be something different to put into the calendar. Make sure you're liking this video, subscribing if you haven't already. Yeah, people already know where this goes. Save your comments for Monday on that one. It's our pinned tweet. Obviously, if you haven't already and you would like to, it'd be greatly appreciated if you vote for us. Obviously, the Content Awards. There's 3 ways to do that: Instagram, Twitter, or on the website. All of that is on our pinned tweet, so you can just go and find that. There's about 2 weeks left until the deadline on that one. So if you get those in, that'll be greatly appreciated. Following all of our socials, every single platform we're on is All for United WFC. So you may go and checking all those out. And yes, we should hopefully be back on Thursday or Friday after we've just smashed Liverpool in the Coxie Cup. Have a good week, all.